Hi, I'm Ben. Welcome to my book corner, and this is my reading wrap up for February of 2026. In this video, we're going to briefly go over each of the books that I've read individually before then pivoting to the top line of my reading stats for the month of February. After which, I'm going to touch on my tentative reading plans for March of this year. So, first off, if you like this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments down below what you would like to see me do on the channel, and also what are your highlights of your reading journey so far in 2026. But with all that said, let's dive straight into the books. First up, we have my only ARC read for this month, Barhopping for Astronauts by X.Robertson. This is a short story collection, very much sci-fi focused. I'm just going to read a little bit of the description for you, which you can see on screen right now. The future is weird. Bring a drink. An influencer lets the internet puppet his brand new cyber limbs. Door-to-door sale things arrive with a television that watches you. Two YouTubers live stream a dinosaur attack, for the clout, of course. Welcome to a dive bar at the edge of the multiverse, where every cocktail is spiked with existential dread in these darkly satirical shorts. X.Robertson skewers the absurdity of modern life through warped futures that feel unsettlingly familiar. Identity, surveillance, grief, pleasure, even the apocalypse collapse into each other, often in the same paragraph. These are the dreams of the doomed and coping mechanisms of the barely functional, but also the love stories and inside jokes that bubbles up as the world glitches around us. So, if you've ever wanted to simulate the rest of your life as someone else, or found comfort in a soothing blue screen of death, pull up a bar stool. The last round of reality is on the house. So this is a collection of 15 stories, and each of them takes a couple of elements that are currently quite hot topics in many ways in the news, be that AI, grift and influencer culture, things like that. And it kind of takes them to its hopefully absurd next level. Like any short story collection, your mileage for this will vary. This is incredibly well written. Some do land better than others for me. The ones that I really do want to shout out, Barhopping for Astronauts itself is a fascinating story of how, as a culture, we kind of leave things behind and just forget about them. Especially great achievements or great people at times who make real difference. As well as that, you have Influencers, which is the one mentioned within the description. That is one of the best short stories I have ever read. The idea of the grind of influencer culture and being at the demand of the audience is not too far from where some people are already. They're kind of the two highlights for me, as well as Sat's Gym Rats as well. But there is something for everybody who has issues with the modern world and the direction that it is going, which, let's be honest, the world is on fire right now. So that's probably a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. But I gave this a 4.5 stars out of 5. Really, really thought-provoking, quite shocking at times as well. And yet, somehow, despite how absurd it occasionally gets, it's also scarily believable at times. So that's Barhopping for Astronauts. This did come out in 2025. So I read this after its release, but I did receive this through Book Sirens, so thank you to Book Sirens for that. Do highly recommend you check this out, though, if you're a fan of sci-fi short stories. Up next, we have A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. I might get some flack for this. So, this was released in 2017. It's 703 pages of my life I'm not going to get back. And I gave this 2.5 stars. So, for anyone who doesn't know, I have a difficult relationship with Sarah J. Maas books. I am not a massive fan of the two Throne of Glass books that I have read, which are Throne of Glass itself and Crown of Midnight. I think they're fine. I think they're full of plot contrivances which are blatantly obvious. I really did not like Akatar, which I know put me in the minority. I did like A Court of Mist and Fury, though. I did think that was pretty good, and I had high hopes going into this. And it just face planted right from the start. And I wouldn't mind. Half of my irritation with this book is I love the premise of what's going on. This is part political espionage, part political plays in general, a continental scale war of attrition. You're fetching in points of mythology. All this should be my jam. And it's not, because pretty much throughout this book, all the chemistry that was built up within the previous two books is not there. I don't feel anything between Rysand and Feyre. I don't feel very much between any of the other characters either. Everyone here feels like set dressing to Feyre's story, and they get what feels like so little, and objectively that's not accurate. Nesta and Alan both go on these pretty significant arcs. Cassian and Azriel as well do have a fair bit going on. Lucian, who is the highlight once again in here for me, and is the only one that has any chemistry with anybody, you know, is not in the book for half the game, but even he has this really interesting, in theory, dynamic. But it doesn't land because the chemistry that was in the previous book is gone. And I can't put my finger on exactly why. And this should be exactly my sort of book. And I gave this a 2.5 stars because it felt like it wasted my time. Even though big things happen in here, they either don't feel particularly impactful to our characters, even though they should do objectively, but they just don't. Or they don't feel earned. When you have, there's a couple of deaths really early on at Feyre's hand, and it's kind of played off as a big deal, and it doesn't really feel like it. And then it's reinforced later on in the book that how important these characters, well, not important, that's the wrong word, but how close these characters were to the antagonist. You also have a few points in here where plot happens because of plot, which is something that I have seen, again, as mentioned, especially egregious in the first two Throne of Glass books at times. And it just, it angers me, because this could be a 5-star masterpiece, and on its surface, with the themes it's looking at, with the beats it's hitting, this should be spectacular, and it just misses. Everything feels so two-dimensional that it just lacks impact. And I know I'm going to be at the minority on this one, but I really don't want to continue this series, and I'm being bullied by Elaine over at Cobalt Dragon to continue this series. I am going to read the next one. We'll get onto that later. But if the next one, which I know is a short book, leaves me feeling the same as this one, I will not be finishing the last one in the series, despite the fact it is sitting on my shelf. So, A Court of Wings and Ruin got 2.5 stars out of me, and I feel like that's me being generous. The third book on the list is The Final Season by Andrew Gillsmith. This is an indie published sci-fi story, and this is one of the books that I got last year. Was it last year? Might have been the year before at this point, through your Paper Quest, which is a book subscription that's now over in the US. In theory, I should, again, much like the previous book, really like this, and it just doesn't land for me. So what we have here is we have a narrator telling us beat for beat what is going on within the story, and giving that to Pennyworth throughout as well. And that might be why I have a bit of an issue with this. If you like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, you probably will like this, and it mentions there for fans of Douglas Adams, Kurt Vonnegut, Monty Python, and P.G. Wodehouse. Monty Python I can definitely see as well. I don't know why this didn't click for me personally. The idea of this one is there's a planet that is doomed to be subsumed into a wandering star. They just go with this 10,000 years ago, and they just decided, what's the point? And just go day to day thinking, oh well. I never tried to do anything about it, which feels like a weird choice, but there we go. Unknown to this planet, however, the Rexons, as they are called, they have been a reality TV show for this whole 10,000 years since they were discovered, as people watch them, like we watch Big Brother, go about their lives, knowing that their doom is inevitable. There's some interesting characters here. And I'm not going to try and pronounce any of them because the names in these would make fantasy cities blush. But you have the sort of the showrunner, this ball-breaking, evil, maniacal person who doesn't like happy endings and just is only bothered about ratings and shocking the audience. You have your person in the writer's room who's there partially through nepotism because they've been sort of given the job by one of the most powerful people in the industry, but who is quite naive and sweet and overall thinks that nice endings are a good thing. You've got our little lovebirds who have their baby, even though that's very much frowned upon in the society that's about to be doomed by a star. And you have a few other characters. Well, the characters themselves in isolation are quite interesting, but it doesn't quite gel well. And I think for me, the reason for that is the narrator. The narrator is obviously, as you would expect, throughout the book, but they're very introspective, giving their opinions, their thoughts, in a very purple prose kind of way. There are a number of words in here that I have never seen before and will probably never see again, which is fine. No particular issue with that. But the narrator felt incredibly self-indulgent to me, which took me out of the story rather than immersing me within it. That is obviously a personal gripe. Other people may well get on better with the narrator than I did. I like the overall idea of this whole society that's doomed, being watched by the outer universe, who probably could save them, but TV in it. I like some of the themes that this explores around Hollywood and corporate backstabbing and nepotism and almost algorithmically I can't English. Algorithmically driven content for views rather than, content that is good. But sadly, this just did not land for me. This is part of a series. I probably won't be carrying on with this. I appreciate what it was trying to do, but overall, I gave this a 3 stars. Just wasn't for me. I'm going to cover my next 2 books together because they're both part of a series, both audiobooks. The first one is Chamcaster by Sabastien de Castell. It's 11 hours and 41 minutes for the audio. The third book in the Spell Slinger series. I gave this 4 stars. I really liked this. This is the one where Kellen in particular becomes the most interesting character of the cast, because so far in books 1 and 2, kind of wasn't, still finding his feet. And this is very much, at this point, still a coming-of-age story in many, many regards. But at this point, they're far beyond the confines of where they've been previously. And you really do begin to see Kellen coming into his own and being quite proactive in trying to deal with problems and protect the people around him. And begin to really understand the nature of the relationships that he has formed over time. But on the flip side of that, you have the darker side of the character beginning to come through. And will do anything and the ends justify the means. You also have some interesting wrinkles in terms of family dynamic here as well. I don't want to spoil too much. This is a third book in the series, but I gave this a 4 stars, and then that bounces into the 4th book in the series, which is Soulbinder. So this is 11 hours and 41 minutes long. Let me just click that. And at this point, Kellen has kind of broken away from the group and gone his own way. And this is where Kellen is very much, even though he has been the main character throughout, very much entirely the central pillar. And the callbacks to other characters are generally done through an internal monologue, which I quite like, as he tries to discover more stuff about the Shadow Black, the curse that he has been living with. And he begins to finally get some answers, but also realizes that there's other evil people in the world, which this keeps hammering home. At this point, though, Kellen does feel like a pretty well-rounded character. They come across as a bit of a knob a lot of the time because they've had to build these walls around themselves because of the life they've been living on the run as an outlaw, and they feel like they can't let anyone get close to them, especially after what happened in the previous book. And there's a really interesting juxtaposition here between Kellen, who is on their own for the majority of this book. Everybody else is gone for the majority of this. And the people that he meets in this one, who are incredibly competent, young, kind of likes them, but there's something else underlying here with most of the characters. And I like the fact that Kellen just goes in and just goes, you know what? I know I'm not the strongest. I know I'm not the fastest. And I'm probably not the cleverest, but I'm going to play on the fact that you're going to underestimate me, and pulls everything together. And it just works. Adding the stuff at the end, again with family. And that really does set up the 5th book in the series, which I will hopefully get to this month on audio as well. I have picked up this entire series as physical books because of how much I have enjoyed it. I'm having an absolute blast with these. Joe Jameson does an amazing job with the narration as well. I was a little bit unsure through book 1, but as we've gone on and I've got more and more used to the presentation, I really, really enjoy it. This is a really, really good YA series. I love the sort of the almost Wild West outlaw theming that's going on here, but it's now beginning to pull into more, which is a weird thing to say considering where the series starts, but a more mythological and magical direction. And I like the little snippets we're now beginning to get more and more of to start to pull together. Really, really good outing. I gave it 4 stars. I might up it to 4.25. We shall see. If you have not checked out the Spellslinger series by Sabastien de Castell, I do highly recommend that you do so. It is really, really good so far. The final book on the list is Chromatic Creep by Kaden Love. This is book 2 in the Toothsucker series. Book 1 I gave 4.5 stars to when I read it last year. I gave this one 4 stars. Comes in at 561 pages long. I'm going to start with a criticism. But I do still really like this book, and I'm definitely picking up the next one. But this book is 240 pages longer than book 1, and I'm not convinced that it actually needed to be. In some ways, this feels like middle book syndrome if it's going to be a trilogy. There's definitely going to be a follow-up. In that you have a large stretch where not a huge amount happens. Now, it works just about because of the chemistry and the interplay between the characters, but you have a huge portion of this book is our characters talking to each other and discussing what they found, discussing their next steps, or making very small incremental steps forward rather than big leaps, which gives this a much slower pace than book 1. Now, part of that is because we're getting a lot more of the worldview here. We're diving a lot more into the mythology. We're looking into some of the things that our characters are going through with their implants and their neon essence and their anti-light, which is in book 1. There's a lot of more mythological based stuff going on here, which I do quite like. It does feel like it stretched out a little bit and could have been condensed slightly. Now, on saying that, it does give you time for those really strong character moments, and Petia, once again, is a really, really compelling main character going through their own levels of self-doubt, their own self-hatred in many regards, and their feeling of letting down everyone around them, including the neon idol, Naoma, who they have ostensibly partially have come over to Arabasia to find. That's sort of the background real reason, as well as being sent there to actually discover where neon essence comes from. But very much almost a depressed dynamic, someone who recognizes that they're an addict, hates the fact that they're an addict, and knows that they rely on their addiction because otherwise they genuinely won't survive because of the implants that they have built into them, very much trapped in their situation. And the chemistry between the core group of Ralia, Boyband, and Petia is as strong, if not stronger, than it was previously. Special shout out here as well for Boyband. I would love a spin-off or a novel or a novella from boy band's POV. I think they're the most engaging of the core cast in here. Really, really enjoyed their character, how much they have kind of grown up, both between the books and continue to grow up throughout this. That's really interesting to see as the clash of heads begins to happen, as develops his own confidence, his own self-beliefs, and very much is set on his own moral path. I do like the background of the various things that are going on here. We continue to look at the themes of corporatism and the dangers of that, corporate espionage, capitalism within politics as well, and the dangers of that, shotgun diplomacy as well, very much a popular thing in the world right now. And the big driving force, which is mentioned in book 1, but it's a lot more obvious here. Technology and social media is very much front and center of the theming of this one. The idea of social media being used to condition people into certain behaviors is very much a hot button topic, especially with young people today, and is very much the hot topic here as well, running throughout this. So really interesting parallels to real life there, as well as the idea of different corporations working together to ensure that people end up stuck in a systematic loop that costs them money. It definitely feels like the US healthcare system from what I understand of it. So that's really interesting as well. It does land itself in the final third, and it does pay off really well. Some of the reveals back there, whilst again quite exposition heavy, really, really, really interesting and kind of out of left field in some ways as well. Bits of it I'd figured out, but I hadn't quite figured out the whole extent of it all. I also do like the regular callbacks to grifters and online, and also conspiracy theories, and how that pays off as well, with a very, very clear reference to one of the entertainment industry's more longly held conspiracy theories, which I'm not going to say anything more about that here, but you can see some clear parallels. I am looking forward to the next book. I do think this is really, really good. If you have read book 1, though, going into this, just be aware there is a lot of downtime in here. It is very differently paced, but still, I think this is really, really interesting. I love the character dynamics. It does land the ending, so I gave this one a 4 stars out of 5. On to the stats then, and 6 books completed this month. We've just been over them all. That is 2 books less than January. However, pages read was 1,782, which is about 250 pages more than the previous month. Average book length of 439 pages. Audiobook 23.37 hours. That's about the same as previous month. Average rating of 3.67. Now, we did have 4 books that came in at 4 stars or above. Soulbinder and Chamcaster both came in at 4 stars by Sabastien de Castell. Chromatic Creep also came in at 4 stars by Kaden Love. Barhopping for Astronauts, 4.5 stars, my book of the month. But we were dragged down to the 3.67 rating, unfortunately, by the final season, which I gave to 3 stars, and The Court of Wings and Ruin, which I gave 2.5. All fiction this month. Fantasy finally back at the top of the heap with 3 fantasy books, 2 YA, which are the Sabastien de Castell books, 2 sci-fi, which both made it into my highest rated reads, 1 thriller, which would be Chromatic Creep, and 1 romance, which was right at the bottom of the pile. 2 audiobooks, 1 ebook, and 3 physical books this month. And as you can see by the pages read and minutes listened graph down there, reading was all over the place this month. Really, really up and down month, to be honest. So, yeah, here's to hopefully a more consistent month in March. But speaking of March, onto my reading plans for March. Then we're going to start with Network Effect. This is one of my 2 audiobooks I'm planning on listening to. This is book 5 in the Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells, and once again narrated by the amazing Kevin R. Free. You know that feeling when you're at work and you've had enough of people. I work in retail, so yes. And then the boss walks in with yet another job that needs to be done, right? This second or the world will end. But all you want to do is go home and binge your favourite shows and your Ascension murder machine programmed for destruction. Congratulations, you're Murderbot. I'm usually alone in my head, and that's where 90+% of my problems are. When Murderbot's human associates, not friends, never friends, are captured, and another not friend from his past requires urgent assistance, Murderbot must choose between inertia and drastic action. Drastic action it is. I am looking forward to continuing this series. I do have this out on loan from the library at the moment for the audiobook version, so that's going to be my first audiobook of the month. My second one, I will be continuing Spellslinger. The next book is Queenslayer by Sabastien de Castell, and once again narrated by Joe Jameson. Kellen and Rykis have finished fighting a duel in the desert when Kellen inadvertently smears blood on the Darraman flag, an act of treason for which the marshals have no choice but to arrest him. Just before he's put before the Queen to be executed, Kellen is given a strange piece of advice from one of his fellow prisoners. Kill the Queen, and he'll be given clemency by those who take power. But when Kellen comes face to face with the 11-year-old monarch, he realizes she's vastly smarter than he expected, and in a great deal more danger. So, excited for that one. Not excited for the next one, though. Court of Frost and Starlight. I just want to get this off my list. This is book 3.5 in the Court of Thorns and Roses series. If I dislike this, then I will not be continuing the series. I am not wasting my time with it any more than the 272 pages that this is going to be. Feyre, Rhysand and their friends are still busy rebuilding the Night Court and the vastly altered world beyond, recovering from the war that changed everything. But winter solstice is finally approaching, and with it, the joy of a hard-earned reprieve. Yet even the festive atmosphere can't keep the shadows of the past from looming as Feyre navigates her first winter solstice as High Lady. Her concern for those dearest to her deepens. They have more wounds than she anticipated, scars that will have a far-reaching impact on the future of their court. I believe this dives a little bit more into Feyre's sisters, so anything that is less Feyre is a bonus to me. But yeah, we're doing that one this month. We then have The Rising, part of the Crooked Tale series by Chris Harrison. I got this off of Book Sirens. This is book 1 in the series. 294 pages, came out in 2024. In the heart of a derelict, once infamous hotel, believed to be one of Britain's most haunted places, lies a chilling mystery that defies the understanding of the local police. Crooked House, buried deep in the woods of a sleepy village, harbouring a chilling secret, with its dark history of unsolved murders and spectral whispers, become the stage for a group of unlikely heroes. So that's that one. The next one has confused me a little bit. I don't know if it's just because I was being really dense looking for it on Goodreads, but The Wraith Returns by Paul G. Zareth. Alien vampires, trapped in a time warp, find themselves being hunted by an immortal assassin of their own creation. Guided by the will of the erased tree god, a warrior who should never have existed emerges in a world he no longer recognizes. A centurion races against time to save her brother from a dying world, but the only man who could unlock the cosmic prison was buried alive 200 years ago. Probably that one. An exiled prince plots to reclaim his throne, but in his path stands an enemy whose actions threaten the future of the entire sultanate. An ambitious researcher is willing to stake the lives of millions to become the next great power. A celestial reconciler is ready to wipe out entire civilizations to restore space-time continuity. Who will survive, and at what cost? So The Wraith Returns, Revenge of the Wraith Paladin, number 1, 2nd edition. And this is where it's confused me, because whenever I looked for this, it came up with Revenge of the Wraith Paladin, which is a much shorter book, but there is a second book in the series. So I'm wondering if books 1 and 2 have been put together and rewritten as one book instead, and a much longer book, because this comes in at 737 pages. So this one is a chonker, but I'm definitely reading that this month. I did get this off the author, so I do kind of need to prioritize that one. And then if I get through all of those, I have another 2 books to read. The first one is Memories of Tomorrow by Noah Isaacs. This is book 1 in the Tales of Aram series. I have read the prequel novella to this and I really liked it. So for years, Aram has felt that he was cursed, as if his very being was wrong. Some say that seeing isn't always believing. But for Aram, however, nothing could be further from the truth. Fated to a life of catastrophe and ruin, the visions that plague Aram's sleep always realize themselves, even when they depict his loved ones dying gruesome deaths before his eyes. So, Yeah, I am looking forward to that one. It's been on my list for quite a while. It's 313 pages, so not too long. Hopefully I can get to that as well. And then if I get through that, then I have We Call Them Witches by India Rose Bauer. So I got this in my Illumicrate Evernight subscription. This is a fantasy horror. Most people have been devoured by the eldritch creatures. Sarah and her family have been fighting for survival, and the only thing that works against these monsters is their knowledge of folklore and pagan rituals. So a folkloric horror, my favourite type of horror. So fingers crossed I will get to that as well. But there we go. That is my plans for my reading in March. What are you planning on reading in March? Or what other things are you up to? Let me know in the comments down below. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all very soon.